It is a breezy spring afternoon in one of the villages in Middle Adronic. The sounds of the busy market square are muffled by the sound of Hugh's soldiers marching by the streets. The leader of this cohort of soldiers, Queen Silas, orders the men to set up camp for the night. There is an uneasy feeling gripping the queen. It has been a few days now since she has caught wind of a treasonous plot by House Leywin to overthrow the king, her husband, Cathal Hughes. On the next day, the sun has barely risen over the horizon. The dignified atmosphere from the Queen's name day celebration the day before is quickly shattered by a man on horseback. Running towards the camp, yelling in urgency, his hand pointed firmly at the nearby woods. Slowly, the crimson, blue, and golden yellow Leywin standards emerge from the woods. The camp dwellers quickly scramble to their feet, rushing for their arms and armor. The battle that would mark the beginning of the War of the Goldcloaks was about to begin. It is the year 110 of established history. The War of the Wolves that has rampaged through the land for decades is ending. The Kingdom of Adronic's aggressive military campaign against the kingdoms of Valais and Oberschall has resulted in catastrophic failure. A disgraced king of the Adricans, Cathal Hughes, would be forced to sign the Treaty of Bays. Adronic will face consequences in terms of tribute and territory. In the subsequent years of the War of the Wolves, the Kingdom of Adronic would face socio-economic turmoil as the peace treaty saw the Adrican royal family, the royal house of Hughes, lose immense political power and influence. As a result, King Cathal Hughes became greatly disliked by the common folk and nobility. House Leywin, a branch house of the royal line of Glenfell, the same line that House Hughes is descended from. Its High Lord, Rhiannon, would win much glory, having led the king's army in the War of the Wolves. His victories cemented his status as a war hero, worshipped by the people and respected among the nobility. On the other hand, the king received much contempt due to his physical and mental ailments that disavowed him to lead the army himself in battle. Thus, he delegated that task to House Leywin. As a result, the glory gained from the king's armies was attributed to High Lord Rhiannon, and not the king himself. In the year 112 of established history, the social and political backlash from the losses in the War of the Wolves caused the king to suffer a complete and utter mental breakdown, rendering him unfit to rule. Faced with this dilemma, the king's wife, Queen Silas Hughes, would instead rule the realm as its regent. The mental instability of the king and his unpopularity with the nobility revived Rhiannon, High Lord of Arthside's interest in a claim to the throne. Thus, he began secretly plotting against the king. Due to his reputation as a famed war hero and the presence of Glenfell royal blood in his veins, many southern Adrican nobles rallied to his faction. In year 114, on the 26th day of the second period of established history, the Queen Regent, having caught wind of the plot, began to send messengers to the loyal houses of northern Adranic. The Queen also endeavored to leave the capital of Adranic City and set course for a more secure base of operations in her home territory of Sawain. As many in Adranic City openly supported Briannan, it was very apparent that in the event of a siege, the common folk of Adranic would not take up arms to defend their so-called traitor and idiot king. At the dawn of spring, on the first day of the third period, the Queen Regent and King secretly left Adranic with a retinue of 3,000 men and 200 knights, setting course for Sawain. However, the travel plans of the Queen Regent were not so secret after all. The many spies that Briannan had planted in the city had informed Briannan of the Queen's plan for some time. Therefore, Briannan dispatched 4,000 men and 300 knights under the command of Lord Aileen Magies of Sarwain to intercept the Queen and capture King Cathal. On the third day of the third period, the Queen Regent, unaware that their travel plans had been leaked, decided to set up camp near the small village of Father Hossak. Soldiers began to undress from their arms and armor and set up tents. Many of the men also began celebrating in the taverns as it was the Queen's name day. Many men would drunkenly stumble back to their tents in the dead of the night. It is rumored that another reason for the Queen's very slow pace of traveling and choice to camp in Father Hossak was due to her secret lover, looking to make one last final rendezvous. The Leywin host arrived on the dawn of the fourth day, third period. The Hughes army at this time were just awaking from their drunken slumber, as the night before, many of the troops were celebrating in the taverns as it was the Queen's name day. This is exactly what Lord Aileen had hoped for. Knowing that the Hughes men would be knocked out drunk, she marched her men through the dead of night to catch them at their wits' end. As the camp of the Hughes could be seen in the distance, Aileen ordered Lord Ivan to deal the first strike. A loud bell rang throughout the Hughes camp, signaling the attack. The staggered men quickly scrambled to their feet, rushing for their arms and armor. However, it seemed to be too late. The Hughes men would not be able to form a line of battle in time. The morning sun had not yet risen over the horizon when the thundering hooves of the infamous Saurwine cavalry stampeded through the freshly shaved wheat farming fields. And the Saurwine cavalry were riding like devils, trampling anything that dared oppose them. It seemed the battle was lost before it even started. However, suddenly the blast of a horn could be heard in the distance. Early that morning, the son and heir of Cathal Hughes, a 15-year-old boy named Artair, had gone out hunting with 100 knights. When he returned to the camp and saw the Leywin cavalry charging, he instantly reacted. In an unparalleled act of bravery, he rallied his knights and initiated a countercharge against the Leywin cavalry, even though many of Artair's knights were not properly equipped as they were only out for hunting. The boy commander beat his chest and yelled, "Brothers, now is your time! Charge!" Like a thunderstrike, the Knights of Hughes would smash into the Saurwine cavalry, with Artair driving his sword into the helmet of a Leywin knight, unseating the poor man and leaving the blade stuck in its place. Lances would be shattered, shields would be broken. With every minute that passed, the fair color of the wheat field was masked in the chaos of Hughes and Leywin men. While the Hughes knights had successfully stopped the charge of the Leywin cavalry, their bravery could not compensate for their lack of proper equipment and significantly fewer numbers. Once the Saurwine cavalry regained their footing from the countercharge, Hughes' men began to fall like flies. Noticing his men being cut down around him, Artair ordered a general retreat. The Hughes knights were routed with significant casualties, while only inflicting minimal casualties on the Leywinists. Artair had bought enough time for the Queen Regent to form a proper battle line. However, due to how sudden the attack was, many of the Hughes men were not wearing their armor. Hughes men buckled their feet and rallied their shields together for a shield wall. A tense silence filled the Hughes line as they saw, beyond the distance, hundreds of Leywinists moving across the field. One of the conscripted Hughes soldiers puked, the nerves getting the better of him. Soon the Leywinists were so close that the whites of their eyes could be seen. In the Leywin line, Lord Aileen Mages, high on her horse, ordered her men to beat their shields to intimidate the enemy. In an instant, she raised her sword to rally her men, shouting, "Sons of the Rhine, sons of Sauerwain and Fethin, strike true, strike hard, charge!" Swords met shields, and the screams of the wounded filled the battlefield. Warriors grappled in a desperate struggle, their faces twisted in pain and fury. The ground quickly turned slick with red, bodies falling like broken dolls, trampled by the relentless surge of combatants. The stench of death and sweat hung heavy in the air. The relentless din of steel against steel, punctuated by the cries of the dying, created a symphony of chaos and destruction. However, it seemed like the Hughes line was holding and slowly making ground. Even though many of them were unarmored, the Leywinists were exhausted from their forced march throughout the night. But hopes of a Hughes victory were soon dashed, as a detachment of Sauerwein cavalry had stopped pursuing the routed Hughes knights and had returned to the field of battle. The Sauerwein cavalry descended upon the unsuspecting Hughes infantry like a storm of death. With terrifying speed, they crashed into the rear ranks, their lances skewering men like straw dolls. The impact sent shockwaves through the Hughes line. Hooves trampled over the fallen. The screams of the dying and the wounded rose in a horrific crescendo as the cavalry hacked their way through the disoriented and panicked infantry. The rear ranks of the Hughes infantry crumbled under the ferocious assault, unable to withstand the sheer force and savagery of the cavalry charge. Panic spread like wildfire, the once steady line now a writhing mass of terror and confusion. The ground became a morass of death, a testament to the carnage wrought by the Sauerwein cavalry. The Hughes line disintegrated, their spirit shattered by the overwhelming brutality of the attack. Seeing their comrades routed and slaughtered, the remaining Hughes soldiers lost all will to fight. They broke ranks, running for their lives, only to be mercilessly pursued and cut down by the Leywinists. The battlefield was now a scene of utter devastation, the hopes of a Hughes victory annihilated by the sudden and savage onslaught. In the end, Leywin stood victorious, the field littered with their enemies, the blood of the fallen soaking into the earth. The battle was won, and the Hughes' dreams of triumph were reduced to nothing but a grisly memory. Artair and Queen Silas fled from the battlefield with hundreds of Hughes men, while King Cathal Hughes was captured and taken into custody. The battle was a decisive Leywin victory. Leywin forces soon entered Adranic. Brianan Leywin was shortly thereafter appointed Lord Protector by the High Council in Adranic.